Hello, how are you folks? I believe your preparations are going very well. Wish you the best of luck. Friends, I'm here with yet another lesson, and here we are going to discuss something about the psychological technique, its principles. There are certain folk wisdom, there are certain beliefs which have not been tested in the lab but tested in the life. Friends, sometimes it pains me to see this rate of selection. Rate of selection in the SSBs is very low. As of now, it barely crosses about 7% or so. Anyway, when we analyze what is the cause of such a low rate of success, then the experienced people like me reach a very different, painful conclusion. It doesn't give us any pleasure. We feel pained. Friends, let's understand that the high rate of rejection in the selection boards cannot be attributed squarely to the lack of talent or merit. It is not because the candidate don't deserve. It is because the candidates under the influence of proper, or I would say the improper guidance, they only have learned to misrepresent their merit or the talent. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप में योग्यता या प्रतिभा की कमी है. कमी किस बात की है? कमी प्रॉपर गाइडेंस की है. If you have learned to misrepresent your talent, I'm afraid the consequences can well be understood. So in this episode, we are going to discuss certain things about the psychological technique. There are certain principles, there are certain findings out of experiments in the field of psychology. There are certain assumptions, and as I have told earlier, there are certain folk wisdom, लोक विश्वास जिसको आप कह सकते हैं, उनका भी इस्तेमाल साइकोलॉजिकल टेक्निक करती है. जरूरत इस बात की है कि हम इन चीजों को ठीक से पहचाने. सी वी डू लॉट ऑफ हार्ड वर्क as far as TAT is concerned, WAT is concerned, and other tests are concerned, but we seldom pay attention on certain general aspects which are, in my opinion, very, very essential to know. And before you actually present yourself, you must be having a fairly good idea about these things. Understand that if you have got the proper knowledge about the system, tools and the tests in the techniques, then you can fire 4x4 cylinders. Your talent, your merit, your energy will be coming out effectively. It will be in alignment with whatever is required. So without wasting much of time, now let's start. The first thing, I'm talking about my own technique, psychological technique. And the first question many people ask, How does the psychological technique examine a candidate's suitability? It's a fact that all the three techniques, they have got different terms. They have got different planes of behavior to observe. So is the case with the psychological technique. So the first thing you must understand that all the techniques, they observe the behavior of the candidates, and after which they go a step further. That is, they make a prediction that this candidate is likely to be an average officer, high average officer, excellent officer, or with the present performance, this candidate is not likely to make the grade. They make the prediction. Psychologist also makes the predictions. But remember, while in the science it is always possible to make the predictions with accuracy and for a very long period, in human behavior it is not possible. Let's take an example of very, very simple reaction of chemistry. When an acid and a base combine, they make salt and water. NaOH, when it combines with hydrochloric acid, the resultant is NaCl, which is a salt, and H2O. This prediction, you can make it for eternity. Whenever NaOH is combining with HCl, it will result into salt and water, NaCl and water. But please understand, here we are dealing with the human beings. It is not possible to predict about the human beings with the same accuracy for a long term or on a long term, because the human beings change. Their body changes, their mind changes, they learn new things, their status changes. We cannot predict any human being's behavior over a long term. But yes, it is possible to predict it for a short term. So that's what I have written here, that limitation of prediction. It is possible to predict only about a few years, maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years from the time when you are being tested. So that is evident that psychologist is not going to make a long-term prediction. He is going to predict what you will do as a junior officer. A junior officer, technically you may say, I mean major and below. Raw faculties associated with the personality profile of a junior officer. And it is with respect to whatever you are going to perform as a job. An officer performs three functions: operations, administration, and maintenance. Many a time I have reiterated the thing. Operations means whenever you are tackling the danger, maybe in the form of war, you are tackling the enemy, or sometimes when the situation is extremely difficult for the people, a crisis situation due to internal revolts or natural calamities. But here, we specifically assume that you are fighting the war, operations. Administration and maintenance are the internal jobs that you perform for your unit. A junior officer primarily is associated with the war functions. This is what I have written here, the last point, that operations or the combat functions, they dominate the junior officer's work profile. Dominant will be the functions. So if you are an infantry officer, you'll be chasing the terrorists in the valley mostly as a junior officer. If you are an aviator in the Air Force, mostly you'll be flying your planes for one mission or the other. And same thing, whenever you will be the, let's say, like a naval officer, you will be in operations always at high seas. So the raw faculties, what are the faculties which aid a junior officer in performing the operational functions? You must know. Whenever we'll be meeting for the thematic perception test or WAT or psychological technique and its tests, I'll explain in detail that there are qualities which aid the operational function more in comparison to anything else. Now here you see on this slide, on the left hand side, you see profile of a junior officer. See the pyramid, more than half of the pyramid is having the war-like functions or operations. Adam and maintenance functions, they are relatively lesser. When you become a senior officer, when you start commanding a unit, at that time, your function or you rise up in the hierarchy, then Adam and maintenance functions start featuring in your job profile more in comparison to operational functions. I'm not saying that you will remain detached or totally dismembered out of the operational functions. No. But yes, I'm talking about your physical involvement, right? So please understand that the psychologist in particular is looking for those raw faculties in your personality. When I say raw faculties means you are walking in the portals of the selection board with those qualities. Now, you have seen there are two words here. Operations are will driven and Adam and maintenance, they are skill driven. We will be training you. The armed forces will train you for certain functions. But you have to have certain things. Those things cannot be, instilled in you. You can only be trained. Your will or the willpower. You cannot be trained for the willpower. You can be trained for the skills, how you understand the weaponry. But the will you have to have. The psychological technique, friends, follows certain principles. The first thing you must understand, how does it examine the suitability of a candidate? So here it follows both structural and functional approach. Structural means what are your psychological compositions in terms of your intelligence, your attitudes, your needs, and how those needs or the motivations or the merit or the logical faculties or the perception or a perception is seen in your behavior. So that is what is we call it the structural and functional approach. And here you see it is mentioned here, structural means the psychological entities and their strength, and functional means how you show these things in your behavior. And it's also a fact, friends, that everybody has got a pattern in his behavior. So the psychologist examines the pattern of your behavior, then he comes to a conclusion about your suitability. So what is the behavior as far as the psychologist is concerned? It is not a recall. Recall is like you prepare for some equation in mathematics. You retain it, and once You find a question, then you recall it. It's a function of memory. But psychologist does not believe only in stimulating your memory. He is going to stimulate your higher psychological functions like perception or perception. So stimuli, they are received. You will receive the stimulus from the real life situations. Those who have been to selection boards will recall there are 60 SR situation reaction test made the situations. There are 60, and you see every situation is connected with the real life. Nothing like imaginary, nothing like very academic. So situations or the stimulants or the stimuli, you may call it, they are selected from the real life. And friends, I would like to clarify yet another misnomer. People say, what will be the answer to this situation? Friends, remember, there is nothing like an answer. Whatever you produce in your behavior for the examination of the psychologist is not an answer. Answer is there for something which is factual. It is a response. Answer can be examined in terms of being right or wrong, but a response cannot be. We believe in the principle of eternity of response. Infinity principle and its wide implication. The same situation can be responded to by a number of people in a number of ways. One cannot say that this is right or this particular thing is wrong. Okay. Now you see here, there's a formula. It seems that I'm going to teach you something in terms of certain formulations. No, sir. It is the expression, a short or condensed expression of something which many people don't pay attention to. Here it is written, the P is a function of H and E, multiplicative function of H and E. Well, you may call P as your personality or the pattern, or sometimes the level of achievement, whatever you have achieved, is a function of the interactive function of two things, your heredity qualities and the environment. Psychologist is very fair. He will examine all your achievements and the limitations in the background in which you have been born and brought up. In the theories of psychology, especially the early life environment and the home environment, the richness, the values, the deprivation, all these things, they have a very deeper impact in your achievements and in shaping your personality. A candidate who has secured just 70% of marks and another candidate who has secured 95% of the marks. Psychologist doesn't compare them by their numerical achievements or the level of the percentage that they have achieved. Psychologists will always connect it first to the background. If a candidate is coming from the deprived background, which is seen from the PIQs, a copy of PIQs, by the way, is given to the psychologist. So he will always examine or relate your achievement with the environment in which you have been born and brought up. He will give you the level playing field. Some of my students, I found them in my informal interaction with them. They are a little, sometimes feel they shy, sometimes they feel hesitant because their marks are not very impressive. They couldn't participate in extracurricular activities, and if at all they have participated and shown initially, they could not post the high level of achievements. friends, rest assured, psychologist is not going to be judgmental only by seeing the level of your achievements in academics or extracurricular activities. He will always connect it with your background. So go absolutely without any hesitation or considerations. The next point, if you see here on the slide, is written projective technique. This word projective technique again has been very, very badly interpreted by many mentors. What do you understand by projective technique? It's very simple. Whenever the main doer, the main active person in any situation is not specified, then what happens? The person taking the test, he trusts his own qualities on the the central character. You remember that in thematic or perception test, the psychologist doesn't dictate you that this person is the main character. You choose. The main character remains undefined, unspecified. Similarly, in the situation reaction test, if you see how it is worded, he was doing or she was in this particular, he or she, no name, no social, no professional identity, no age. It's left vague. So when the central character is undefined or unspecified, the person taking the test projects his own quality on the. It has got certain confusion. I've seen it. We will touch on these confusions about the projective technique when we will be dealing with the particular test. The next point to understand is the time pressure for spontaneous and original responses. Please trust my words. The real input for examining your personality for the psychologist is your unedited, unexamined, unrehearsed behavior. This will appear only when you are given only the bare minimum time which is required to show that behavior. The moment psychologists will start giving extra time, you will start revising your behavior. You'll start correcting. You'll become self-critical. We don't want this thing. That's why we give just 4 minutes for the story writing, 15 seconds for the WAT, and just 30 seconds per response or per situation in the SRT. There's no point in cribbing about the lack of time. The psychologist expects that you are going to complete your response, complete the stories, your WAT sentences, or the response to the situations in that particular given time. Another thing is motivation and self-concept. Friends, as far as motivation is concerned, the psychologist is going to have two particular types of motivations in his focus. One, motivation to be independent, need for independence. Most of my young friends, you are still depending on your parents or your guardians for your sustenance. They are giving you everything, whatever you need. It's a very, very simple thing to understand that the parents or the guardians, as long as they are bearing your expenses, they will regulate your behavior. You can tolerate being regulated till some time in life, let's say till the time you are adolescent. But after some time, when you become an adult, it will start pinching you. Some people, they don't feel the pinch of it. They are very, very happy. Kya karna hai? My father is there to look after me. But please remember, your father can earn or your father can earn for you also, but he cannot earn your respect. You have to earn the respect position in the society only by your own independent entity. So the psychologist is going to examine very critically what is your motivation to be independent. One. And two, if you want to become independent in life, if you want to enter a profession, what is your minimum benchmark where you are going to draw a line that below this, I'm not going to accept. Generally, I ask the question in my classes, you want to become independent? Right. But would you like to become a coolie at the railway station? You will, no, no, no. Would you like to become a clerk? I mean, I'm not saying that the profession of clerk is bad. I'm only saying some people, they find that they can achieve something higher than the status of a clerk. So this is called as the self-concept. And self-concept is what? Understanding your limitations and your strengths with respect to the goal which you have set for yourself. In our particular context, here, if you have decided to become an officer in the armed forces, how much you feel you have got within yourself at the time of appearing for the test, and how much you feel is to be still cultivated in your personality. So motivation and self-concept. Generally, the test associated with this is the self-description. We will talk about self-description sometime later. Then comes performance versus potential. Friends, remember, it is not the performance alone which is considered by the psychologist. The example given here, a turtle, very, very famous story that, well, एक बार कछुआ खरगोश आपस में competition में लगा लिया सबों ने. Okay. And what has happened? You know the result of this competition, racing competition, I mean to say. A turtle may defeat rabbit in a race, but cannot beat its racing potential. ये कहानी मुझको भी बताई गई थी. हम लोग जब छोटे थे तो क्लास में कोई गुरुजी आए और कछुआ खरगोश की कहानी उन्होंने बताई. I've asked him a question after the class, and of course, Guruji did not give me the answer. The answer came in the form, I mean, शब्दों से नहीं बताया उन्होंने. The answer came in the form of a slap. I've asked him. He said, tomorrow, if there is a jungle Olympic and one has to select the racers, so will you be selecting the racers from the turtle community or from the, the rabbits community? Guruji didn't give an answer. He only snubbed me, and later on, slap also was followed. Answer is very simple. That a turtle may beat the rabbit in a race a particular time, but cannot beat its racing potential. We are certainly looking for a performance, all right. But we are more concerned with your potential. Sometimes candidates post the results. After the results, the candidate, they feel quite startled, quite surprised. Yeah, this person, he spoke so very well. He is a sure shot candidate. Let's say chest number X. I mean chest number 42, for the sake of example. So we found chest number 42 was visibly very nice, impressive personality. He spoke very well, but उसका नहीं हुआ, बाकी दूसरे का हो गया. Unassuming person, very calm and quiet. It puzzles you. फिर आपको लगता है नहीं, selection boards are not fair. ऐसा नहीं. Selection boards are extremely fair. They are paying more attention to the potential rather than the visible performance. And the next point is macro approach or the gestalt approach, holistic approach. Psychologist gives you 11 stories, 60 words, and 60 situations to respond to. Many people, they think it's a waste of time. Why not just about 6 stories? Why not just about 20 words or just 30 situations? Please remember, psychologist wants to see your performance on a very wide canvas of life. Remember, in our personality, there are certain things as the values they dominate. We are looking for that dominant factor sometime. Remember, there could be one response which is reflecting on certain things which might make or mar your impression. एक रियल लाइफ एग्जाम्पल देखते हैं. You meet somebody and ask him to describe about his qualities. He describes, let us say, 20 good qualities about himself. Then आप कहते हैं, अच्छा भाई, do you have any weakness also? And the person, he grins and says, yes, I have got a weakness. I tell lies. Now he has spoken 20 good points about him, and he has told just one bad point, that he speaks lies. He tells lies. Now, will you be still giving him the credit for कोई mathematical formula लगा करके कि 20 good points minus 1, so we have to trust him for 19 good points? I'm sure you got my point. This is called as the holistic approach or the gestalt approach, and for this reason, the psychologist appears a rather mysterious person. It's a macro approach, it's not micro approach. If you understood this, your life will be that much happier and that much clearer about the approach of the psychologist. I have told in the beginning that there are certain things which have been experienced by the people. They are regarded as the pieces of wisdom. They have not been tested in the labs. One of such things is the element of choice. And the second thing is, second folk wisdom is that everyone wants to be wanted and loves to be loved. Now, what is element of choice? In the real life situations, many a time we make a choice and sometimes we are deprived of the choice. Every Air Force officer, he wears a blue uniform. I was also wearing the blue uniform that you can see here, the picture on the slide here. Can you say with some conviction that this person loves to wear blue color? Blue is his favorite color? No, sir. I'm not wearing blue color out of my choice. Yes, here I'm wearing something out of my choice. So this is going to reflect on my personality rather than this particular thing. Nowadays, if you go to some function, you'll find there is a variety of rotis, rice, sweet dish, desserts, salads. You have got a choice. Some 40-50 years back, particularly in the villages or the semi-urban situations, this choice was not available to the people. Laddu was served to everybody. Now, a person who has taken 4 laddus, you cannot say that laddu is his very favorite dish. No. It is not his choice. Right? So, this is what your choice is reflecting on your inner psych contents. And the second thing is, a person wants to be wanted or loves to be loved. Whenever there is a chance to come out with your real things. You will present something about which you are strong. Take an example, you go to picnic and people ask that, okay, should we have some games? Let us have some suggestions. A person who is strong in Antakshari always suggests that chalo Antakshari khelte hain. Why? The reason is very obvious. He is strong in that. When a few people they gather on some informal occasion, and then you see what type of talk the people initiate. People initiate the talk from the field which is their field, in which they are strong. So you'll find that the doctor will talk about navigate the talk about the human health. A lawyer will be navigating the talks about the legal points. And if you find that a person is talking mostly about the human behavior, its explanation, and the conceptual intricacies about human behavior, you may safely ask him, sir, are you group captain A.K. Srivastava? That's in the lighter way. Understand the point? Now, this element of choice is going to be reflected in some of these psychological tests. Let us say TAT is having the strongest possibility of choice. That we will see later. But here, what is the scheme of psychological testing? Psychological testing is primarily the mind testing. And mind is the functional unit. Its mind is just not the gray matter. Mind has got three layers, like the floating iceberg. Mind also has got the three layers. Let us say the deepest layer, which is not visible from outside. You can call it the unconscious mind. Unconscious mind contains all those forces which energize the human behavior and driving force. They become the driving force. And the unconscious contents are examined through a test called the TAT. Right? Now you see here, there's a small layer which is connecting the air and the water. I mean, here it is a small layer, which is, you may see it's some way it is connecting both. That small layer is called as the subconscious mind, and subconscious mind has got all those entities which regulate the human behavior. They are just like filters in the form of thoughts, ideas, and values. Word association tests that attacks your subconscious mind. And the situation reaction test, or the SRT, is presenting the shape of your conscious behavior. Out of these three, like the floating iceberg has got almost 90% of its contents hidden or they remain submerged. Similarly, 90% of our mind is invisible mind. You cannot control it. We call it the unconscious mind. That's why the TAT becomes the stronger test. Anyway, see the slide. Unconscious mind has got the driving forces, subconscious mind has got the filters, and the conscious mind has got the shape of behavior, right? And accordingly, this is the scheme of the things. TAT brings the structure of the unconscious mind. WT becomes the test of the regulatory mechanism of your behavior, and SRT the shape of behavior. This I have already explained. Out of the three tests, the TAT, the thematic perception test, is the strongest test. Why? It is strongest because of the element of choice. It will be explained to you in detail subsequently in another video, that the situation that is projected on the screen, it doesn't have any objective reality. Its meaning is decided by the candidate. And of course, the context in which your response would take place is also decided by the candidate only. So because of the maximum choice available to the candidate, the TAT becomes the strongest test, and accordingly, the choice that becomes lesser to the candidate when the word leader is projected in WAT, it has got a fixed meaning. The psych has withdrawn your liberty. Yes, you are at liberty to navigate your response in any context. But in the SRT, even the requirement of the situation is controlled. You don't have any choice, neither the choice of understanding it nor the choice to navigate. You have to remain very, very close to the or closest to the contents of the situation. That's why SRT is called as the weakest test. Of course, don't take it in the literal sense, but yes, the most potent test is the TAT. You must take it this way. Now here, friends, caution. If I may say, much at the cost of sometimes annoying the GTOs and the interviewing officers, but this is a fact that psychology as a science is mother of all the techniques. But please remember, it's the most unforgiving technique. It's not kind like a mother. If you mess up with psych technique, you will suffer very badly. Much different from the other techniques, unstructured, projective. It has got its own features. It has got its own contents to look for. It is slowest to assimilate. This is where I caution my my students, don't go to the commercial academies because they have got almost equal time divided to the three techniques. Psych technique, the nuances, they are slowest to assimilate. You may know it for the immediately, but it doesn't sink, it doesn't become the part of your behavior that faster with which the group testing or the interview technique could be. And it is most vulnerable to intruders. Why? Because there is nothing like visibly seen good or bad things. A response is never evaluated in terms of right and wrong. And it is because of these reasons, people, even with the general type of knowledge about the psychology, these people, they have tried their hands and they have, frankly speaking, spoiled the prospects of many. It's most vulnerable technique, psych technique, and that's why most of the times I caution, please choose your psych mentor very, very carefully. The poor guidance given by these non-experts or the semi-experts or the pseudo-experts, it has resulted into maximum casualties. So take it as a warning, don't mess up with the psych technique. Trust the prescriptions of only a trusted mentor. In one of the videos that I intend to post, I will tell you how to identify a mentor, especially in the psych technique. A person who is harping only on OLQs and the positive approach, take it that he is an illiterate person as far as psychology is concerned. It is bitter to hear and more bitter to believe it, but this is a fact. So you have to trust the prescriptions of only a qualified mentor. The psychological technique believes that you have to first raise your merit. Presentation is secondary, important though, but secondary. Make yourself absolutely able, and you can do it by changing yourself. In the psychological technique, not only the, you have to adopt yourself, you have to show adaptation, but you have to transform yourself. Awareness is needed. So I'm sure that with all these things which we have discussed, you will be immensely benefited. These things are not meant to give you any prescription in the test of psychological technique like TAT, WAT, but the understanding of these things will certainly take you a long way and increase your prospects.